Georgia reported a stillbirth rate of 7.4 per 1,000 births, significantly higher than the national average of 5.45 per 1,000 births.
After 5 pregnancy losses, I took a home positive pregnancy test after experiencing some pregnancy symptoms, and it was positive. I was seeing a reproductive endocrinologist at the time who prescribed me medication to hopefully allow me to make it to 13 weeks of that pregnancy because I was diagnosed with cervical insufficiency. And at 13 weeks, I had a transvaginal cerclage placed. I was told to come back at 20 weeks for a follow-up. And despite of trying to advocate for myself and requesting to be seen earlier because of my history of loss, I was told to still come back at 20 weeks. During that 20-week appointment, and the maternal fetal medicine doctor who placed the cerclage came into the room and notified me that the cerclage fell and then my baby was coming out. I decided to fight. So after doing research, I found a doctor in Dallas who would put another cerclage in higher and potentially save that pregnancy. I flew to Dallas that night. I completed a surgery, and while it was successful, it irritated my uterus, and I went into labor. And after 30 hours of labor and excruciating pain, and give birth to my baby, I had a stillbirth. It was very traumatic for me. It was traumatic for my family, and it was hard to cope with that loss.
I remember doing a maternity shoot on a Saturday. I felt him kick for the last time the next day while I was working, and I didn't say anything to anyone because as a mom, even though I knew I wasn't ready to face it, so I waited 2 days, and on Tuesday, I finally went to the hospital. They did 3 different tests, which made it a lot harder. The first test, they didn't find a heartbeat, and then they actually did 2 more. And after that, it was just, I had to go into a full labor. So he didn't come into the next morning. So everything that I went through was like a baby that would be here. Cassius is his name. There was a point in time where I gave birth to him. And then when I got home, it was as if a ghost was there. My family kind of didn't acknowledge it, but I think a lot of them just didn't know what to say.
On August 16th, 2024, my world changed forever. What began as a routine doctor's appointment quickly turned into a nightmare when I learned that my baby, Ava Grace, was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder called IP36 deletion, which was incompatible with life. I chose to carry her for as long as I could, knowing that she would not survive beyond birth. At 24 weeks, I was rushed to the hospital after learning that Ava had no heartbeat. I labored for hours, ultimately delivering my daughter, stillborn, at 4:08 a.m. on October 17th, 2024. While I was able to spend a precious night holding my daughter, the reality of returning home to an empty house the following day was unbearable.
I was working 2 jobs at the time, and despite of that, neither employer, in my opinion, offered adequate resources for pregnancy loss. My first employer gave me a couple of days off and made it seem like she was doing me a favor. And then the second employer, while they were nicer about, taking time off after a stillbirth, it still wasn't enough. I didn't qualify for the full length of short-term disability, but they did allow me to have some weeks off. And even then, I still was experiencing contractions and pain and bleeding. And then my breast milk came in, and I had to go through that process of drying it up. It was a lot on my body, and I wasn't in a mental state to take care of patients because I do work as a registered nurse. So I went back to work in a very raw state.
At the time, I was working in the fast food industry, and I was just a shift lead. So that just means just like a lower level manager in the company. And there weren't many resources. We could get insurance, but it didn't branch out to anything maternity-wise or anything of the sort. At the time I had worked for this company almost 9 years, I honestly assumed that there would be a little more care. I maybe thought that they would, at the very least, send me some flowers with like a little card, saying anything around, I'm sorry for your loss, we're here for you, whatever you may need. It did not go that way.
My husband, whose company does not offer bereavement leave, had to return to work the next day to support us financially. I, too, was forced to navigate my grief alone, as my employer, a large retail corporation, only provided 6 weeks of leave after my loss, despite offering 12 weeks of leave for new parents. This leave was unpaid, and I lost my health insurance as a result. I was left to deal with the physical and emotional toll of my loss without the time, resources, or support needed to grieve properly. I was suffering from depression and struggling to cope, but without insurance or income, I could not access the mental health support I desperately needed.
There are quite a few resources that I wish my employers had just for pregnancy loss in general, whether it's a miscarriage or a stillbirth. When you undergo a stillbirth, you are still in a postpartum period, just as you are after delivering a live baby. And many employers do not understand that concept.
Quite honestly, the smallest thing would have helped. Of course, the bigger things like financial assistance would have helped tremendously. But just them showing that they cared.
So I wish they had short-term disability for stillbirth and miscarriage, or pregnancy loss in general. I did wish I could stay off work longer and take care of myself as I needed, so that when I did return to work, I'm able to properly take care of my patients.
Every single job that I've ever had, they always say the same thing. If you need someone to talk to, we have EAP services. That's not enough.
So the biggest resource is paid leave off for those who have pregnancy loss. And also sensitivity training for managers, I would say. Bereavement leave for stillbirth is not only important, it is crucial.
So when I lost my son and I went home, there are different stages to the anxiety and depression that you feel. When I first went home, I couldn't go in the house. I had such an eerie feeling of just him not being there, and it made a lot of the depression worse. And when I did sleep, I would have nightmares about him not being here, reliving the birth, losing him all over again. And again, these are all things that come with losing a baby on top of the postpartum depression that comes from having a child at all. Jobs should understand that when you lose a baby, everything that a mother who is bringing a baby home feels it's like that times 10.
You don't even know what just happened to you. I know I didn't. And to be able to process what just happened and to start that grieving period can take time. So if you have to go back to work immediately, that very raw and sometimes ugly and volatile emotional period can occur at work. And then your job is at risk. And not because they can't, because we are superheroes and we can show up and put on our face and come to work, but because we shouldn't have to and we shouldn't need to. And it's dangerous. But here we are. Many employers don't have this allotted bereavement period for those who experience pregnancy loss. And here we are trying to advocate for it. And here we are having to explain why it's necessary to those who aren't trying to listen to us.
It's time for action. Georgia lawmakers, Congress, and the community must recognize stillbirth as a life-altering event. We must implement comprehensive policies to ensure workplace protections and paid leave for birthers experiencing stillbirth. Resources for those impacted with ways to connect birthers to available services.
I hope that one day, no family will have to navigate such a loss without the time, resources, and care they need.
So I am currently pregnant, as you all can see. I'm pregnant with 2 twin boys. I'm nervous. I'm excited. I'm over the moon happy. I can honestly say that.
And I'm still, even now, after finally giving birth to a 4-pound, 15-ounce baby boy who is 2, I'm still paying on hospital bills. But because of my journey that I could not anticipate, because I saw a need, and because of my experience, I started a nonprofit called A Light After 9. And I named it that because my son was definitely a light after 9 losses. And we make sure that we advocate, just like healthy mothers, healthy babies. This is not by any means a choice that we have. This is something that we're plagued with. And we shouldn't have to also then fight with our employers to get the paid time off that we need. This is something that is crucial and is necessary for our survival, our mental health, and for our grieving process.